Shigaraki vs. Mahito is an iconic cross-verse match due to all of their similarities. Abilities that mutilate the body, needing to use their hands for their main abilities, getting propped up as the new leader of their evil groups, being ultimately betrayed by their secret main villains, mirroring their respective main characters, and being born from the hatreds humans have for each other. The biggest difference for me being that Shigaraki is something of a victim of a circumstance, while Mahito fully deserves every ass beating he gets. We'll first go over Mahito's scaling and abilities, and then put him up against each version of Shigaraki, since he has much more growth in his story. Jujutsu Kaisen is a fairly straightforward series to scale in terms of speed and power, as long as we don't overcomplicate it ourselves. Mahito is stated by Jogo to have the most potential of the group, meaning a charitable interpretation of Mahito would be to say that at his strongest, he can match the disaster curses. All disasters are special grade curses, meaning they scale above carpet bombing, a tactic used to reduce cities to rubble, meaning the lowest you can say of Mahito is above city level altogether, which is backed up with Jogo's maximum meteor vaporizing a large portion of a city and causing an earthquake. Jogo also has the domain expansion, Coffin of the Iron Mountain, which literally creates a volcanic mountain as the interior, which can range from mountain to island level. This is backed up and reinforced by Dagon, the weakest disaster curse, who literally creates an island and ocean in his domain. Horizon of the Captivating Skanda. We know from Gojo vs. Sukuna that a creator can change the external and internal conditions of the barrier, meaning that the inside doesn't need to match the outside because of Gojo's small domain. So the inside of Dagon and Jogo's domains would need to be island or mountain levels of cursed energy to produce. Oh yeah, I forgot Dagon is star level. Except he isn't. This is a light being used on the page to emphasize the two characters in the background since the portion of the page they take up is tiny. I'm already highballing Mahito here, don't be that guy. Speed is easy peasy. Cursed Nalia is stated by the author to be Mach 3, and the top tiers are only really a level or two above that, meaning they're hypersonic. But I do actually disagree with this, since a much weaker Maki was able to catch bullets. Gege has gone on record to say this was an outlier, but it had happened in the story and we can see it happen. When considering Toji could react to lightning at over 300 Mach. Sukuna slashed electromagnetic waves, which are radiation waves moving at light speeds. And Gojo uses imaginary mass, a theoretical form of physics that can achieve faster than light speed. Speed is inconsistent in JJK. What I think is more important is that speed is not that diverse in JJK past Shibuya, meaning wherever you get the god tiers to, everyone else scales a level or two below. With that in mind, I would say using Maki's bullet calc that comes out to Mach 30 or so is the best option, but that if you want to keep Mahito in the ring, you could use other speeds and downscale to him. Yuji only surprised Sukuna when he was relative to Maki, meaning Mahito is only a bit behind the top tiers, if you are extremely generous. When it comes to abilities, Mahito has the generic curse abilities, his curse technique, and domain expansion. All curses are invisible to the naked eye unless you have some spiritual awareness, have bodies made out of cursed energy which allow them to regenerate from most injuries, and from utilizing cursed energy can use Black Flash, an attack exponentially higher than the user's current stats that also raises them to 120% output. His curse technique is Idle Transfiguration, which manipulates the soul, allowing him to mold his body into weapons, sprout appendages to fly, reshape itself from physical injuries, and even make a doppelganger, although this clone can't mess with other souls. Offensively, he can manipulate someone's soul into a shape that doesn't match the body, causing a gross and painful death as the body essentially implodes. Other uses of his transfiguration uses massive stockpiled humans, which he can use to weaken the resolve of moral characters, create distractions or weapons, and even force them together to create polymorphic soul isomers. Special grade curses that scale to Black Flash amp Toto in power, but not durability. His domain, Self-Embodiment of Perfection, functions as most domains do, creating an enclosed space with a sure hit effect. That being landing Idle Transfiguration, putting his victim in the palm of his hand. Despite having learned domain expansion, the pinnacle of Jujutsu society, Mahito tells Yuji he only now understands the shape of his soul, before transfiguring himself and wearing the instant spirit body of distorted killing. Volume extras consider this to be a 3 times amp in power and durability, while Mahito was amped to 120%, making this Mahito we saw 360%. This is significant considering Jogo considered Mahito someone who will surpass them before Mahito learned his 0.2 second domain expansion or spirit body, meaning this Mahito might be almost 4 times higher than the Disaster Curse's feats, on top of the fact that he could exponentially raise his output with Black Flash. Mahito is an absolute monster inside of Jujutsu Kaisen. Deku trains his body to handle the power of One for All, a quirk given to him by All Might, the world's #1 hero and the symbol of peace, to stop All for One and become the world's greatest hero. The All Might we see at the start of the story saves Deku from a sludge villain, creating a storm that has been calced from anywhere from mountain to country level, which is more consistent when you consider that after giving Deku his quirk, which weakens All Might, he could still disperse massive clouds in his fight with Nomu, and take city vaporizing attacks from All for One at his absolute weakest, as well as the hero's rising feats, which reinforce island to small country level. This makes lower end interpretations of 100% on par with Mahito's more consistent showings. But what about speed? When it comes to My Hero Academia, hypersonic speed is the bare minimum. Edge Shot, a mid-tier, can transform at the speed of sound. Deku using 5 or 30% can dodge automatic gunfire in 2 heroes. Deku using only 20% of One for All creates shockwaves. Lady Nagant fires amped bullets and Deku can blitz them while using 100%, which has been calced at Mach 100 under the assumption of a normal bullet, which Deku was already faster than. By far the best calc for My Hero Academia's speed is the one that takes into account the speed of nitroglycerin explosions to determine that All Might blitzing Bakugo at point-blank speeds while weakened from losing One for All, straining his time limit, nerfed from Hatsume's weights, and suppressed as it was stated all the teachers held back, is a little bit under 1% the speed of light. Which, while this sounds pretty out there, we do know All Might much later in the manga, with no One for All, does dodge a laser after it's been fired at what has been calced to be relativistic speeds. The point being, characters below 100% are likely massively hypersonic. Shigaraki early on was a bumbling buffoon who got mugged by Stain, shot by Snipe, blasted by Bakugo, and conceded to Overhaul. This would put him at Deku's early 5%, meaning he's got speed ranging from Mach 5 to Mach 195, and attack potency 1/20th of All Might, meaning if we go for a low ball, he's more so somewhere below mountain level. I know in Deika City, Shigaraki destroys a city, but that's a destructive feat, not an attack potency feat. Fiction cannot always show the full potential of an attack, or the story would be derailed. Think Dragon Ball. When considering all Shigaraki has is decay, an attack shown by Redestro to have upper limits, early Shigaraki likely can't see Mahito, seriously injure him, counter idle transfiguration, and depending on which speeds you use, even react to him. Mahito beats this Shigaraki. After losing his master, Shigaraki trained by trying to kill Gigantomachia, a being that, as of the anime at least, has only ever been physically matched by Endeavor and Best Jeanist. Redestro directly notes his immense improvement, and once Decay awakens and Shigaraki destroys Deika, Redestro admits his defeat. Redestro scales in speed to Tokoyami, who by scaling to Hawks is roughly at 30 to 45% speeds, and by matching Tokoyami's Ragnarok shows superiority to Moonfish, a death row inmate noted to be a board piece of comparable value to Stain and Muscular. While Stain was weak and important because of his infamy, Muscular did scale to 100% Deku, meaning Moonfish and Redestro being tangible percentages like 30 or 45% isn't impossible. This means Shigaraki, who completely overwhelms Claustro Redestro, if Redestro is 30%, with Claustro's 150% buff, would be 45% of One for All. Now, whether this is the start of Series 45% or current 45% is tricky, since the vestiges of One for All tell Deku he'll get much stronger much faster from here, but this is after learning Black Whip. Essentially, we can take Route 1, where Shigaraki is now faster and stronger, using more consistent output from both, but has no answer to domain expansion, and would still insta-lose. But if you scale Shigaraki to current 45% instead, this might change. Considering quirks are compared to muscles on multiple occasions, specifically in that they grow by straining and damaging them, this would mean Deku's body getting stronger to handle 30% of One for All consistently would have to be 6 times stronger than the start of the series. So One for All is likely 6 times stronger too, especially considering in the manga Deku rapidly encroaches on Prime All Might not too long after the Dark Hero arc. This gives us Vigilante 45% being 270% of Episode 2 All Might. While I do prefer Muscular being nerfed from Shindo, this is supported when Deku one-shots Muscular, compared to needing 125% in the training camp incident. If this is the case, the fight changes from close stats and Mahito having hacks, to Shigaraki dog-walking Mahito, with the only win con being self-embodiment of perfection. Here's the problem though. Does Shigaraki possess cursed energy? We know Mahito can interact with the physical world, but whether his domain can recognize Shigaraki is much more interesting because of Maki vs. Nalia. Due to Maki having no cursed energy, she was not recognized and thus not hit. So would Shigaraki have cursed energy, or is decay more like a heavenly pact? To be completely frank with you, this is your call. Shigaraki is someone entirely defined by his hatred for everything, meaning he definitely would have cursed energy in JJK. But we just do not know for sure, and you literally cannot prove this point. If we assume he can be affected by domains, this gets more into how you choose to do speed for Mahito, but essentially in Jujutsu Kaisen domains are unavoidable, meaning they outspeed any scaling the verse has. However, if that verse is Mach 3 and Shigaraki is 2% the speed of light, he could blitz the domain before it captures him. If this happens, Shigaraki will literally blitz Mahito too fast to be caught by a domain or idle transfiguration, and beat him up until he has no cursed energy. Meaning we do have to give them relative speeds for Mahito to win, assuming his domain can recognize him. Having proved himself to Garaki and Gigantomachia, Shigaraki then underwent the process to absorb All for One and gained a jacked body, directly compared to All Might. When he fought Deku, Deku used consecutive 100% attacks which were only slowing Shigaraki down, not even winning. When considering the 6-time estimate earlier, this makes Shigaraki 600% of original All Might, but with the addition of Super Regeneration, Search, Air Cannon, and Decay. To be blunt, a more reasonable Mahito gets mugged physically. And even if we say Domain Expansion GG, now Shigaraki has the vestige of All for One, which literally tries to take over Shigaraki's body and mind, and become someone else entirely in the Star and Stripe arc. We know that he and Deku call the vestiges alive inside One for All, meaning he has someone else's soul almost as strong as him, or stronger, residing in his body, creating the Yuji problem. And again, that's assuming the self-embodiment of perfection recognizes Shigaraki, which we literally cannot prove it would. This means that with the more reasonable versions of both characters, Shigaraki blitzes, one-shots, and can even counter Mahito's domain. Not to mention that the basis of All Might we've been using has stated himself that he's at least 60 times weaker than his prime, which you can stretch to 75 times, and Shigaraki not much longer on in the manga blatantly outscales Prime All Might, and Deku catches up. Meaning even characters like Vigilante Deku and Star and Stripe are likely encroaching on that Prime All Might ballpark. If we keep things fair, Mahito easily defeats early Shigaraki, cheeses Awakened Shigaraki, and can't handle War Shigaraki, let alone Manga Shigaraki. If you disagree, feel free to tell me why in the comments. If you have your own 10-minute video on this topic, share it with me so I can react to it on stream. Bye!